is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 66th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I'm stoked to be joined by my good pal and bean enthusiast, Mr. Jez Corden. Jez, how are you doing on this fine Saturday, my dude?
Doing pretty good. A little bit tired, you know. Yeah, Xbox 2 podcast went long and hard yesterday into the night, burning the midnight oil, literally the midnight oil. But yeah, today's Saturday, and I thought, you know, you kindly invited me on to do some Cheddar Days, and here we are.
Yeah, it's
been a week.
It's been a week. As anyone who's been on the old Twitter.com knows, there's a lot to dive into, especially if you are an Xbox enthusiast. There have been some developments, and people have some very passionate takes on these developments, and we're going to be diving into all of it. We're going to be talking about the massive delays from the Xbox camp. We're going to be talking about how Xbox can potentially fill some of these gaps. We're going to be talking about the Dead Space remake launching in early 2023. We're going to be talking about Silent Hill maybe potentially being real once and for all. We're going to be talking about Master Chief and his spicy new romance, and so much more. There's so much to dive into. I've been on a little vacation. I went to Seattle, took some time off, so it's been a couple weeks. We haven't had Checkpoint in a couple weeks because I've been out, so it's nice to sit down with you and really kind of dive into all of the meat and the chaos that's been going on. But before we get into,
is a good word for it.
But before we get into all of that, and everyone here probably already knows, but for the folks who don't, where can they find Jez Corden? And who is Jez Corden?
I am Windows Central's gaming editor, I think. Last time I checked.
Yeah.
Job titles change very frequently around here. But and you can find me on Twitter at Jez Corden, JZCORDEN, and on the Xbox 2 podcast, xbox2podcast.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Keep it
Thanks
again.
I got a bit of a black eye here, if you notice, and it's because I dropped my phone right on the corner of my eye socket this morning, and it's a pretty heavy phone, you know, Galaxy Fold, landed right in my face. So if you're wondering why I look like I've been in a fight, I've been in a fight with this.
He says that, but before he went live, he was trying to sell me on Hearthstone, and I had to smack him around a little bit. That's the dark truth of. All right, so quick housekeeping. For those interested, Evil Dead the game did not have an early review period, so I'll be playing that over the weekend. The review will be going live early next week. If you are listening to the audio versions of Xbox Chaturdays, we are a little late to the game on the audio version, so any reviews you feel like dropping for the show really help feed the old algorithm. All right, Jez, let's dive straight into our first topic here. Dead Space. We've talked about this on Checkpoint. Dead Space is getting a remake. EA Motive is handling the remake. There's been some noise from people like Jeff Grubb and others saying that, you know, maybe this is coming a bit sooner than a lot of people would expect. And we've seen rough kind of teases of the audio and the visual style and how they're basically trying to recreate this iconic horror game. And this week we got the confirmation of the release date. So Dead Space 3 is apparently coming on January 27th of 2023. So, 7 months from now? So, we've talked about this a little bit on Checkpoint, but how are you feeling about what we've seen of the Dead Space remake so far? And are you excited to play this in January of next year?
Well, I talked about this yesterday on Xbox 2 as well, and I said on that show that I was kind of like, I've been really skeptical of Dead Space because it's kind of like, why remake this? It's not that old. Why not just give it a resolution bump? And I played the original recently on backwards compatibility, and I was like, this holds up, you know. And when they first started showing off animations for it, I was kind of like, this looks worse. The animations look worse. They look janky and stiff. So I kind of like they've thrown my initial thought was they've thrown this at EA Motive because they don't have a clue what to do with EA Motive. They don't have a clue what to do with them. Similarly to how Square Enix didn't have a clue what to do with Crystal Dynamics and just sort of pawn them off on Xbox to make Perfect Dark. But Samuel Tobert, our colleague on Windows Central, actually sent me a link, and it was like, no, they are actually upgrading a lot of stuff. They were showing like how like it has like skin and tendon peeling mechanics now when you dismember people. Because obviously in the original, dismemberment was a game mechanic. Like headshots weren't enough. You had to cut their arms and legs off with like engineering tools, and that's what gave it sort of its unique combat feel, was that whole system. So like I was thinking like they're probably going to dial down the violence, you know, because Dead Space the original had some controversial scenes, and you know, I remember it being in the British tabloid media for like the specific scene, which I won't spoil for those who don't know, but there's some pretty violent scenes in Dead Space that are very quite visceral in the literal sense. And I was thinking like they'll probably tone it back and dial it down because like everyone's super sensitive these days, but apparently they're ramping the violence up even further. So I'm you know, I'm a little bit more optimistic now after Samuel Talbot sent me that stuff. Well, I mean, what do you think of it? I know you're a horror fan, right?
Yes, exactly. For me, violence is never a negative in a video game, especially in the horror camp. You know, one of the main reasons I love franchises like Gears of War, as gimmicky as it might be, were the executions. I remember watching somebody get chainsawed with a machine gun with a chainsaw at the end for the first time, be like, I'm playing this game. I don't care what it is, I am playing this game. In Dead Space, like you touched on, the limb severing mechanics were a huge draw of the game because it took the tension of Resident Evil, where sometimes the zombies would get back up if you didn't get the headshot, and elevated it. Where if you didn't sever all of their limbs, you didn't stomp on that corpse, stomp it into a pile of pulp, that thing could come back and get you. And there was always that feeling of like, did I do enough? And so you're, you know, the zombie land, the infamous double tap. Like in Dead Space, you're like quadruple tapping. You are stomping that corpse as many times as you can. And that mechanic was so amazing to me. I loved it so much. So to see them elevate the gore, like you said, that you touched on some of the janky animations we saw. They did thankfully release an update that kind of showed how they've improved it since the initial reveal, because yeah, we both commented on the gun firing animations being really stiff, like looking worse than the original. But they've since updated that, and they've shown that, you know, they are making improvements, and this is early. That being said, it's not that early. We thought maybe the stuff we were shown is way early in development, but if this thing's coming out in 7 months, it can't be that early in development. So I'm curious to see how drastic the final product will look based on the stuff we've seen so far. And I'm also kind of wondering when we're going to get the full big gameplay reveal for this, because we've seen bits and pieces, but I want to see the big showcase of what this is and what that looks like. And then that'll be the kind of moment where I decide whether or not I'm super excited, because I'll just say flat out, Dead Space, one of my favorite games of all time. I thought that the original came out in a point of time, in a period of time where survival horror was really stale. A lot of people were struggling to figure out how to keep survival horror scary, keep it feeling great, and Dead Space managed to come out with great gunplay and legitimate scares, and that balance is so hard to do. So it holds a very special place in my heart. I'm also very bitter at EA for the way that Visceral was handled and the way that they basically, you know, destroyed that studio and that team, even though they delivered 3, in my opinion, really great games. You know, everyone has their different stance on Dead Space 3. I put Dead Space 3 in the camp of Resident Evil 5. Maybe not the best horror game, but a really good co-op game. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think this is going to hit the January? You know, we're going to be talking a lot about delays on this episode. Do you think this is coming out in January?
I have no idea. I mean, Capcom got away with releasing Resident Evil 3 that was 2 hours long and selling it at full price. So, yeah, let's.
You ain't wrong there. You ain't wrong there.
Maybe nostalgia's enough to carry the game. I don't know, but I just hope that it releases in a polished state, and you know, increasingly, I think gamers are getting. I mean, we're going to talk about this in a bit, but increasingly, I think gamers are getting fed up with studios that announce launch dates and then subsequently delay them after. It's almost like launch dates are more announced for shareholders at this point rather than actual gamers and stuff. And it touches on a wider problem of, you know, how much trouble do shareholders actually cause for game development in general. I might have to close my window because there's motorbikes driving past. And shit. Sorry about that. Yeah, give me a sec.
Yeah, I'll just touch on the whole situation with release dates. And again, we'll touch on that probably deeper as we talk about the Xbox delays. But there is this marketing beast that kind of sort of needs to be fed, and it leads to a lot of problems for these development teams because, as you touched on, at a certain point, this release date is for, especially if you're a publicly traded company, for the shareholders to let them know, like, this is when we can expect return on our investments and stuff like that. And again, it's exciting for fans, but it doesn't really mean anything if ultimately or inevitably the release date's just going to get pushed. So it is conflicting, and I understand why people want release dates, because as we saw on Twitter a couple weeks ago, people were so mad that Xbox did not have release dates for its games. People were yelling about that. And then post this delay this week, people were saying, why did they announce a release date so early? So again, it's a lose-lose cycle or situation for a lot of these publishers, because they have to appease fans, they have to appease shareholders, and there's all these factors that go into putting a date, even if that date means not a lot in the grand scheme of things. All right, Jez, let's get into some super chats here. Let's see what the energy of this chat is today. If you guys are joining us live on youtube.com/Windows Central Gaming, hit that like button, share it out. We have a lot of really great stuff to dive into today. PVTX Pile says, hello, fellas. Okay, we all know Starfield was pushed because of WoW's Dragonflight expansion, right? For the Horde. That one's for you, Jez. Is that true? Is that a fact?
Man. Well, the current expectation is, like, we have a lot of history of World of Warcraft expansions to go on when it comes to these cycles, and it's like usually like it hits alpha and then it hits beta, and you can sort of estimate roughly by analyzing the several other expansions how long between announcement and release it is. Typically, they announced it last month, so everyone's expectation is that it launches around January, February, maybe. So I don't think they were thinking about Starfield with relation to that. But
no, I don't think so. But maybe Starfield was scared of the new World of Warcraft expansion. Maybe that's really what it was.
It's looking pretty good, man.
They wanted to just clear that entire window. We don't want to step toe to toe with WoW, the beast. All right, Georgie seems to have some negative energy here. Miles, stop. Xbox can't come back from this. Zero games. Management needs to be cleaned due to Halo, Perfect Dark, Everwild, Undead. Xbox has lost it in competence. All right, Georgie, stick around. We will touch on this. I'm not going to dive into this right now because we have some other topics before we get into it. But I've seen similar takes. I know people have passionate thoughts. David Scott, infamous director of God of War, has had some emboldened, impassioned comments about firing Phil Spencer out of a cannon into the sun. But we'll touch on all of that in a little bit here. Sergeant Rake says, WCG Battle Shrimp for the win. Happy Saturday to you both, and thanks for all the dope content. All right, for the folks who are watching live, if you are not in the loop, today the gauntlet is being thrown down. The Windows Central Discord is going to the Games Mess Discord and destroying them in Halo Infinite. We got people like Jeff Grubb, Mike Minotti over there who say they're good at Halo, think they're good at Halo. They've been talking a lot of trash, and you know what? We're shutting it up for once and for all. Before all of this, before we stepped into the Thunderdome, I gave Mike Minotti the opportunity to join us. I said, Mike, this is your one and only opportunity. You can turn against Jeff Grubb, you can join us, and you can be on the winning team. He said no. And for that, I will defeat him, destroy him with zero remorse. And that needs to mean... Are you playing with this, Jez? Are you playing the Halo tournament? It's right after the show today.
Think so. Oh, is my mic not working? Someone was saying in chat. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Levels are coming in good.
I don't know. What time are they playing? How many hours from now?
Basically an hour and 12 minutes from, or 2 hours and 12 minutes from now.
Oh, man. So the problem is my family's having a barbecue this afternoon. So time zones may not permit me to attend, but I feel like it's probably a good thing because you want it to be at least a little bit fair for Jeff. So if I join, then it just won't be fair.
We got
Jeff,
me,
Jeff
we got
and
Brendan,
Mike
we
just get
got
destroyed.
Sergeant Rake. The squad's coming in hot and heavy. So, yeah, it's probably best not to stack it because we've seen the infamous clip of Jeff Grubb playing Capture the Flag. So we know how this is going down. And if you haven't seen it, there's an amazing, find it on Twitter, remind him every day. There's a clip where Jeff Grubb is running in the opposite direction. He's running towards the enemy camp with the flag in Halo Infinite. And I hope he never lives it down. All right. And some other big horror news this week. We're going to be putting our tinfoil hats on. We're going to be going into Conspiracy Town. Because if you've followed me on Twitter over the course of the past couple of years, I've been deep down the Silent Hill conspiracy rabbit hole. And I've been, connecting the dots, piecing all of these little nuggets of odd coincidences together. And for a period of time, I was saying that, Bloober Team should be the team to make the new Silent Hill. And then we got data that, Bloober Team is partnering with Konami, and Bloober Team is going to be making games with Konami, and Bloober Team is hiring a combat animator, and there's all these little pieces, and I was like, you know what? I think Bloober Team is making one of these Silent Hill projects. On this week, Dusk Golem, who's kind of an infamous leaker, if you will, took to Twitter and shared 4 images that this person said they believed to be from one of the Silent Hill projects, and they were 4 images, one of a woman, a bunch of post-it notes all over a wall, and then like a bunch of trash in a corner. So it was, not the best pictures, but it kind of gave us a good feel of what the theme of this game could be. So Jez, before we dive into the deeper overarching conspiracy, did you see this leak going around? Did you get DMs about this?
I did. I saw the pictures at least. I wouldn't have been interested, but supposedly it's set in Britain.
Yes.
Which I think is intriguing, considering Silent Hill has historically no relationship to Britain whatsoever in the lore of the existing franchise, as far as I'm aware. So that's quite a departure from what I would have expected. But as a Brit, I am intrigued by the prospect of them trying to make England look any more hellacious than it already does. So that's an intriguing prospect for me. But yeah, what did you think?
So again, Rand was actually the one who DM'd me about this and was like, "Hey, look, check this out, bro." And so I saw it. I dug down, and Dusk Golem has obviously gotten things right in the past, so there's some credibility there. But what really makes this interesting in the grand scheme of things is those images were hit with a DMCA takedown. So Dusk Golem posted those images to Twitter, and somebody came to Dusk Golem and said, "Take those images off Twitter right now." So in the world of leaks, it's probably easier just to kind of ignore it, honestly, because now, even if those images weren't real, even if for whatever reason those images turn out to be fake, because of this DMCA takedown, there is now an air of authenticity to those leaks. And there was also somebody involved with Silent Hill Shattered Memories taking to Twitter to complain about people leaking stuff around the same time. So there's all this stuff now that makes that particular leak seem far more credible. So I was excited to see the hyper-realistic art style. It reminded me a lot of Resident Evil 7 in the sense of there's that scene where there's just a big pile of trash in the corner and everything looks gross and wet and kind of moldy. So that gets me excited because I really, really loved, PT. PT is infamous because of its hyper-realistic art style and its ability to kind of transport you into this place. And it's unconfirmed as to who's developing this particular project. The rumor for a long time has been 2 Silent Hill projects. I think at this point, Bloober Team is doing one, and I don't know if the second one is still happening or if another team is handling the second one. But along with this leak information, these basically leaked pictures, Dusk Golem commented on PlayStation's involvement. And it sounds like, according to Dusk Golem, that PlayStation maybe is publishing this. So there is potentially a world where this Silent Hill, based on the images we've seen, is a PlayStation exclusive. So how does that make you feel? If this all turns out to be true, Bloober Team is making a Silent Hill, and this Silent Hill is a PlayStation 5 exclusive, how does that make you feel as an Xbox fan?
Well, first of all, it's kind of like, I mean, it hinges on how good the game is at the end of the day. Because let's face it, Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 were amazing.
Yep.
Silent Hill 4 was a bit conceptually interesting, but didn't really have the consistency of the first three.
Yes.
And then we don't talk about the other Silent Hill games because they were all terrible.
But
frankly.
dude, Korn did the soundtrack for Downpour, bro. Come on, that's sick.
Yeah, I love Korn. I've seen Korn live, but Korn, a good game, does not make. Unfortunately, they also did the soundtrack for a game called Haze. You remember that game?
Oh yeah, is that the
No?
one where you're doing like cocaine? That was like the gameplay mechanic.
I can't even remember.
If I remember
Right.
right, the gameplay mechanic was you would take super cocaine that would give you superpowers. Because I remember going to an event and they handed out these little cocaine mirrors. It was like a box of mints that had like a Coke mirror on it. And I was like, what on earth is this world that we live in? Edgy
Well, that's
video
a
games
different
marketing.
time in gaming marketing.
Yeah.
That is a different time in games marketing, I think. But, but Konami sucks as a company. Konami is trash. They're worse than trash. They are below EA. They are at the bottom rung of game publishers. They are a gambling company. They make gambling machines. They don't make games. So my interest and hype for anything that has the Konami name on it is pretty much about zero. It's as low as it possibly could be. Konami is just a garbage fire company, and I don't mind saying it. So, they have a lot to prove if they want to, actually produce something that even vaguely approaches the legend that is Silent Hill. After every sort of terrible decision they've made revolving around Metal Gear Solid, Kojima, and all the, horrible decisions they make, I just can't even vaguely bring myself to care. And even if it was PlayStation exclusive, I'm not someone who has a PlayStation, but I'm pretty sure it'll come to PC as well at some point because Konami will want as much return on their investment as possible because all they care about is money. So if it is good, I'll play it on PC. But yeah, Konami. Konami. It's
like
Konami in 2022. Do you
Konami
really
has
care?
so much to prove because let's be real. Let's look at their last couple games. Contra Rogue Core, absolutely terrible. Metal Gear Survive, absolutely terrible. Metal Gear Survive, the best part about Metal Gear Survive was being in the lobby with your friends and shotgunning their legs out from underneath them. That was the greatest part of that game. And when the lobby of your game is more fun than the game itself, you failed. You have failed to make a compelling game.
No.
And I don't want to fault the developers because in a lot of ways, those games fundamentally were interesting ideas, but it just shows that Konami was not giving these teams the tools and resources they needed to succeed. These were hyper budget projects with really small, really quick turnarounds, and they were just trying to cash in on established IP. And as someone who likes a lot of Konami games, Konami early on was a very important publisher for me and a lot of my tastes. And for them to kind of cash in on that and exploit its own fandom in that way, that does not sit well with me. So I don't want to just quickly say, well, I love Silent Hill, so I'm just going to buy this. I will say that, I've always wanted Bloober Team to get access to a big budget because I've always thought, regardless of the fair criticisms of their games, they've shown a lot of promise. They've shown a lot of potential. They know how to build compelling worlds. They know how to create well-paced stories, and they know how to do atmosphere. And Silent Hill is an atmospheric game more than anything. Like Resident Evil is a campy, cheesy horror game. Silent Hill was a tense, slow, atmospheric horror game. And so those are the reasons that I feel like Bloober Team would do an incredible job. And so if Bloober Team is making this particular game, that is the reason I would check it out. And if it is a PlayStation exclusive, I will play it on PlayStation. I would be bummed because after all of this kind of noise and speculation, after fans waiting so long for a new Silent Hill, the reality is an exclusive at the end of the day is going to sell less copies. Bloodborne, a game that everyone loves, everyone talks about being one of their favorite games of all time. People forget that sold 2 million copies, which isn't bad. A lot of games would love to sell 2 million copies. When you compare that to Elden Ring, when you compare that to Dark Souls 3, which are over 10 million on both of those, and those are multi-platform, that's the reason I think it would be unfortunate unless, Konami's getting a humongous bag of money from exclusivity, because I feel like, let's say Silent Hill comes out and it's a decent Silent Hill, but it doesn't sell that well. So Konami's going to be like, oh, well, it didn't sell that well, so I guess we're never doing one again, or we're waiting 10 years to do one. So that's my fear, is that Bloober Team is going to come out. They're going to deliver a really great Silent Hill game. It's going to be an exclusive. Given that it's horror, it's automatically niche, so the audience is smaller just by default, and it's been a long time, and people like yourself don't have trust in Konami. That is my big fear with this, is that, you know, they're going to come out, deliver a product that is great, and it's not going to sell. And like you said, Konami is all about those Benjamins, and if they invest in a game and it doesn't give them the return on investment that they hope, they're done. Because the reality is, Konami has made more money than ever doing nothing. They're just sitting back, just swimming in money. They're not like struggling financially. And so the incentive for them to make really good games is low. And that sucks because they have so many good IP. Yeah, obviously I'm passionate about Silent Hill. Obviously I'm passionate about Bloober Team. One final question on this topic, Jez. Is this the year? Because it's been a meme for a long time that this E3 we're getting the Silent Hill reveal. Is this the E3-ish window that we get the Silent Hill reveal? Is it finally happening, Jez?
I mean, maybe. The fact that there's marketing images slipping out kind of suggests that there's some movement on it, right? So it seems like some of those pictures look like they came from trailers or promotional materials, which is probably why they're leaked in the first place. So
yeah.
I think, yeah, probably this, and the fact that it got DMCA'd or whatever, you know, that pretty much confirms that they're legitimate. If they weren't legitimate, what right would Konami have to DMCA them in the first place, right?
Zero.
They have to prove that they own the images and that they were basically stolen. So, and if you misuse the DMCA, you can get countersued, you know. So that adds an air of authenticity, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think there were promotional materials, and there's probably a trailer coming. I think Jeff Grubb said he'd heard vague rumors. I don't know if he fully confirmed this or if he just said he heard the vaguest of rumors. The PlayStation was gearing up for some kind of its own showcase in June as well. But I don't think he fully confirmed that.
I think he said
but let's pretend that he did.
2 windows, June and September, I think is the latest that he said.
Yeah. If it is exclusive, then you can expect to see it there, you know. But yeah, I haven't heard anything on my end. But that's been the rumor for ages, like you said, Bloober Team. And like, I know you rate Bloober Team, but I'm not. I'm like, I think they're great at atmosphere, but like mechanically and gameplay wise, their games are super boring to me. But they have hired a combat designer finally.
Yes, and that's
my favorite game of theirs is Layers of Fear, funnily enough, which is like their oldest one, I think.
Yeah, it's one of their
first Layers of Fear is really good.
Yeah. So again, yeah, they've never really had a huge budget. They've been an indie studio publishing their own games and their horror games. So, you know, not a lot of money.
Punch above their weight.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. So I just want to see them, you know, get some resources and see what they can do. You know, if it doesn't hit, oh well, yeah. I'm wrong. You can laugh at me. But if Bloober Team does announce a new Silent Hill, I get to say I called it. I get to say I called it a long time ago. So checkmate, gamers.
I suppose on the plus side, Silent Hill's never had particularly good combat.
No.
And people even like...
Go back and play Silent Hill 2 and tell me it has good combat. One of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah. But people say that the good combat adds to the bad combat, adds to the atmosphere because you're like struggling with the controls to actually attack anything. Oftentimes, it's more efficient and effective to just run away rather than flail terrible, like, you know...
Try to smash him with a 2x4. Just...
yeah. So maybe that could play in their favor, but it's almost like, you know, in a world where Resident Evil 4 exists and, you know, 7 and 8 and, you know, Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, and we got Dead Space coming up, like, can they get away with having this sort of janky sort of combat feel, like intentionally janky combat? I don't know, but I'm intrigued to see if they can pull it off.
Yep, I hope it's this year. Again, I'm not going to say for sure because that's just the meme at this point, but I had heard from some folks last year that Konami, before everything with COVID, was planning on having a bunch of big reveals during E3, and they put out that statement saying we're delaying those announcements a bit, and we haven't really seen any fruit come from that. And the speculation was that one of those particular titles was the Castlevania, or not the Castlevania, but the Silent Hill reveal. So I'm hoping that is this year, because I really just want to be done with this saga. Because at this point it's happening. Whether or not it's going to be a good Silent Hill or not, we'll find out. But Silent Hill is coming back in some way, shape, or form, and I just want it to be out there so we can just move past the constant speculation, the constant rumors of Kojima making a Silent Hill, and all of that. I just want it to be revealed so we can just move past this decade-long chapter of our lives. Please, hopefully it's a good game, but I just want it to be out in the world so we can just move on. Oh, all right, Jez. We got some super chats. We got a lot of super chats. Shout out to the over 300 people joining us live on this glorious Saturday. If you are enjoying the show, hit the like button, share it out. We are gearing up to dive into the meat, the bulk of this episode, and the topic I'm sure a lot of you want to hear our thoughts on. But first, let me make sure I am all caught up on these super chats here. First up, we have Dylan Dodds. What scares me is the fear of them wanting to release one big RPG a year, so now I feel Avowed, Fable, Outer Worlds get pushed back for no reason. All right, we'll comment on that real quick. Do you think there's a world where Microsoft is only trying to release one RPG a year? Do you think that's a strategy that they would adhere to?
I think that is a valid point to raise. Like, one of the things that I said on Twitter the other day was, it probably would have made sense to delay Halo Infinite to now, to spring, yes, to let Forza Horizon breathe. And then also, we would have had a more polished Halo Infinite drop, and they could have used that buzz to sort of offset some of the Starfield criticism, potentially. But I do think there's a world where if they released Avowed and Starfield back to back, they'd probably cannibalize each other. Or, yeah, well, Starfield would probably cannibalize Avowed. We actually saw, frankly, Horizon Forbidden West arguably missed out on a lot of buzz because of Elden Ring. Elden Ring just steamrolled everything that in its wake, and I think Horizon Forbidden West will definitely, sell really well, and it will find its audience over, the coming months, years ahead. But I do think it's undeniable that Elden Ring took away a lot of the shine from Forbidden West's marketing cycle. So I think if Microsoft's smart, it will spread them out. But as we've seen, I think Halo Infinite launching on top of Forza, I think that was a mistake, personally. I wouldn't have done that. I would have let Forza breathe. And I feel like they always underestimate Forza. I think they always think like, oh, it's a racing game and I want to play it. And then it's like, oh, it hit 20, what did it hit? 20 million players or something?
Forza really Horizon, fast in a couple of weeks. It was, yeah, the player count was huge. It destroyed any player count of any other Forza Horizon, like instantly. Yeah, it was really impressive.
It was big.
Yeah.
It was big, and they could have focused on that, and then give Halo Infinite more time to bake so they could get the live service in place, because the live service is the thing that's letting it down right now. But anyway, it's hindsight's 2020, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because again, you bring up an interesting point, because last year, same situation, huge gap, no big first-party games. Then towards the back end of the year, a ton of first-party games back to back to back to back. Like you said, Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite, a couple weeks apart. And they did that knowing that basically the first half of their year would be really light already. And we had expectations that Redfall would be coming in summer and then Starfield in the fall. And as we're going to touch on, that's not happening anymore. So it is weird that Halo Infinite was pushed to come out. Obviously, it is a big release for them. It probably did move some stuff for the holiday cycle. And as I touched on previously, when a lot of people were talking about the Halo delays, the co-op delays, all that stuff, I always feel for the developers when I see a game that is going to come out at the holiday window no matter what. And I talked about how I didn't want that to be the case with Halo Infinite, and more I'm feeling that was 100% the case. That this, the delay of co-op and Forge and all these other features wasn't necessarily what was best for the game, but it was what was best for the holiday release quarter. And you don't have to agree, but I will always champion the devs, and I'm sure there are people on the team who did not want that to be the release, but here we are. It came out strong, and now everyone is just mad. And the conversations surrounding Halo are just so overwhelmingly negative consistently that I'm just kind of done talking about it. So I'm not going to go into a rant about Halo Infinite because it's quite frankly not that fun to talk about right now. But yes, interesting points about one RPG per year. And if we're looking at 2023, which a lot of people are speculating, you know, Hellblade, stuff like that, Avowed, Outer Worlds 2, Starfield now, Redfall is RPG-ish. So I feel like it's impossible for them not to have multiple RPGs per year, just considering so many of their teams are Western RPG studios. I just hope, like you said, they don't stack them back to back. We don't have Avowed and Starfield launching within a month of each other. Stuff like that it's just baffling. Supernova says, the reason we do not take that the pandemic has an effect after June 2021 is that some games developed during the pandemic and were released in the best way, and some of them are the new Callisto Protocol. Yeah.
So does that mean delayed a lot?
So there are games that have been developed during the pandemic. I feel like a lot of the main difference when we're talking about that is you have in-office teams who are established and have been established that way for a long time, and you have new, nimble, versatile teams who have basically built their studio culture with remote work in mind. And the teams that have a better infrastructure for remote work have been more efficient and have been able to, you know, not get delayed as effectively. But when you're talking about a 343, for example, who has a massive office and has so much of their business wrapped up in office work structure, that is so hard to shift. And I think that is why games like Halo Infinite in particular got so massively delayed. And I have gotten some insights from people, you know, from 343 who have kind of privately shared some of that. So little context.
There's a lot of like there's a lot of sort of, I don't want to say misinformation, but misconception about game development. Just because one studio was able to release things within the pandemic doesn't mean that all studios necessarily function the same way.
Mhm.
Some studios are set up for remote work, you know, and a lot of studios lean on support studios for help. I heard that the demand for support studios was so extreme that Cyberpunk couldn't get any outside help to you know, finish polishing up the game, and that contributed to the way it launched. Obviously that was before the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, these studios that were set up for remote work were in such high demand because the industry is just in such high demand right now. You know, so then when we move into the pandemic era, all of a sudden a lot of the games that are in this sort of mid phase of development, which I've been told is a highly collaborative time for development, and like everything that requires collaboration, where, you know, you can just walk over to someone on the other side of the office and say, have you got this done or whatever, is this branch ready to merge or something. Like now that becomes an email conversation or a Slack conversation, and everything slows down, and that has like a domino effect on other things. Like now you're waiting for this, and they're waiting for this, and they're waiting for this, and everything gets slowed down. And if you're a studio that's not designed for remote work, and a lot of the big AAAs just simply weren't, Microsoft has a very, you know, rigid corporate structure, and they were not designed for remote work at all. Any of their business was not designed for remote work. They were literally developing new tools to accommodate the new working environment in the middle of the pandemic, you know. And we saw like tons of new tools hit GameStack that are designed for remote work to sort of speed up those development pipelines and to, you know, enable running builds from the cloud and stuff like that. None of this technology existed before because it didn't need to exist because everyone was in the office. So it's easy to sort of distill everything down and make it into a simple narrative of, oh, they're being mismanaged or blah, 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 blah. But it's nowhere near as simple as people want to believe it is, because people just want to be angry at something. They don't want to dig into the weeds. They don't want to look at the nuance, and they don't want to admit that COVID is still a valid reason why a lot of these games launch with issues. I'm not saying it's the only reason, and I'm not saying without COVID, Halo Infinite would have launched in a perfectly flawless and polished state, because it probably wouldn't have done. Because like there's a lot of other issues that fed into Halo Infinite's problems. We've heard about the engine being underbaked, and we've heard about like them flipping their design intentions for the game and stuff like that. But I think it's just intellectually dishonest to sit there and say, oh well, you can't blame COVID anymore because that was last year. It's like that's not how time works. That's not how linear time works. You know, in the laws of thermodynamics and all that stuff, we're still feeling the effects of COVID. Like the infection rates might be down, and most people might be vaccinated now, but the effects that it's had on development pipelines are still going to be felt between now and like at least next year, at least, you know. And depending on the size of the studio, and depending on how the studio is set up, those development pipelines will have different effects and different impacts on the scope of development. So, you know, it's okay to be mad and disappointed, but, you know, don't just sit there and think like, oh, I could run the studio better, because you couldn't, frankly. And you don't have the full scope of information on why all this stuff occurred the way it did. COVID is still to blame, you know.
Yeah, the reality is far more complicated and nuanced than a lot of people want to give it credit for, because human nature, we want a simple, easy answer. We want something to blame or someone to blame, and we can point to that person and say, you need to fix it. It's just human nature. We do it with everything. It's not just video games. So it's not odd that that is happening with these delays and a lot of these development struggles. But like you said, teams that were built for remote structure previously, like that was just their culture, they did not have a hard time adapting. And that's why we saw some teams being super efficient during the pandemic. But like you touched on, these massive mega corporations were not. That is not the structure of their business. And so there was a year basically lost for a lot of these teams, and then a year where it was slower than average for a lot of these teams. And like you touched on with linear time, yes, the pandemic is done, but games still take 5 years normally under best case scenarios. And the last few years have been anything but best case scenarios for a lot of these teams. So I think, yeah, like you said, you can be mad, you can be upset, but you got to look at some of the boring reality of the situation. Goldshaw says, best checkpoint ever. Nothing to say other than here is some cash and go battle shrimp. Yes, Goldshaw gets it. And yeah, this is the mega episode of Checkpoint. We got to make up for lost time here. Eternal Umbra says, Miles and Jez, two of my favorite content creators on the Xbox side of things. Would you say Starfield will likely be delayed until 11/23 now? Oh, a follow on Twitter from you guys would be dope, by the way. Side. All right, hold on. Hang out with us here. Eternal, we will touch on that. We will touch on the Starfield release date expectation. Supernova says, I believe Jez 2024, Mr. President. Okay, so Supernova wants you to move to the U.S., become a U.S. citizen, and then somehow run for president in 2024. Is that in the card?
Legal?
I don't think it is.
Is that legal?
I think there's some stipulation where you have to either be born in the U.S. or something weird, or have been in the U.S. for some set period of time. There's some weird patriotic hoorah that says we can't have a British man coming in and run this country. This dude eats beans for breakfast. No thanks. Sorry, not the America.
We'll just have to retake the colonies then. You know, bring you know, take it back. You know.
Mr. Joanna Dark says, just stopping by to say hello to the GOAT, Miles Dompier, and hello to the host of the Jez Cast with Randall Thor 19. Evil Dead, banger of 2022. Oh, yeah. Oh, I saved a little segment at the end to rant about Evil Dead. Because, you know, I've been joking that Evil Dead and Elden Ring would be the 2 Game of the Year contenders of 2022. And here we are. Everything else is moving out of the way of those 2 bangers. Whether you like it or not, God of War is looking at Evil Dead right now being like, oh, maybe not. Maybe we should wait till 2023. I just want to give a huge shout out to the amazing people hanging out with us. Over almost 400 people here on this fine Saturday. Feels great to be back after a couple weeks off. I see Paris Lily in the chat. I see Achievement. Obviously, all the amazing people sending super chats. Thanks so much for hanging with us. One more super chat, and then we're going to get into the meat, the juicy, beefy topic today. Jonas the Dad says, outside of Starfield, what is going to be the centerpiece of the June show? Really have to blow the doors off of the show with these delays. All right, that is the segue. Jez, let's talk about some delays here. Let's talk about some megaton, massive delays in the Xbox camp. All of you know this already. It's impossible not to know this if you're up to speed with the Xbox community, but Bethesda and Xbox have announced that both Starfield and Redfall have been delayed into 2023, and more importantly, no real release windows for those titles as well. So kind of sort of delayed indefinitely out of the 2023 or 2022 window. As a lot of people know, Starfield and Redfall were pretty much the two big first-party Xbox games scheduled to release this year. We've been very vocal about the very slow start to the year for Xbox. There was Stalker, which was a limited time exclusive. It was a partnership launch, supposed to launch in Xbox Game Pass, but there was a war, so that team obviously has other things, more important things going on in their lives, so that is being delayed as well. But those were the two big games. So Jez, before we get into, how you feel, how the community feels, were you expecting these delays? Were you expecting to see just an image on Twitter that said Starfield is delayed and Redfall is delayed?
I think Jeff Grubb had mentioned that he'd heard Redfall might get delayed, but I was on the record of saying I didn't think Starfield would get delayed because, historically, when Bethesda's announced the launch date, they've hit it. I think someone mentioned on Xbox 2 podcast before that Oblivion got delayed, but I was not following gaming news at that time in my life, so I had no idea about that. But I sort of had faith because, like, in the past they'd announced Fallout 4, shown gameplay, and be like, "Oh, the launch date's in 6 months," and everyone was surprised, and then they hit the launch date, and the game Fallout 4 launched relatively, not completely polished, but it was, it wasn't Fallout New Vegas, put it that way. It was playable. So I sort of had faith that the game had been baking in the oven for so long that when they had a launch date in mind, that they were truly ready for it, and that they were in sort of a polish phase, and that it was close to being ready and stuff. So I did not expect it to be delayed. I'd certainly not heard anything on my end. I think I've said before, I don't really have good sourcing on the Bethesda side of things, so I have no inside knowledge about that stuff. But at the moment, anyway, things can always change in this industry. But I didn't expect it to be delayed. But Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, and I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, but he was on Twitter saying that he spoke to a dev last year who literally used the word cyberpunk to describe the situation that it was in.
Yeah.
That it could launch as the next cyberpunk. And I think that's the sort of underscore to this story for me, is that cyberpunk is a game you do not want your massive budget AAA game to be compared to.
No.
You don't want your game to be compared to cyberpunk. So, cyberpunk was such a disaster in terms of, like, not just like the brand cyberpunk as a brand, but CD Projekt Red as a brand. CD Projekt Red had so much goodwill. They were seen as like the industry darling. Everyone loved them. They had like good old games like anti-DRM messaging, and they did all this free DLC for Witcher. Everyone loved CD Projekt Red. They could do no wrong. And then, Cyberpunk came out. I thought it was fine on PC, but I'm someone who ignored all the marketing. I was not expecting Grand Theft Auto. It's sci-fi Grand Theft Auto, which I think a lot of people were. I was expecting first-person sci-fi Witcher. I was expecting Deus Ex with a bigger budget. And that's, for the most part, what I got, and I was happy with what I got. But when you actually look at that marketing, they were promising a very different game than what launched, I think. And furthermore, the console versions of the game were absolutely trash. And I should have like realized that when they didn't offer any code for any consoles, that there was an issue there. But I trusted them like everyone else because they generally have built up all that goodwill. Mm-hmm. So avoiding the catastrophe that is Cyberpunk has to be absolutely priority number one for a single player driven game, which you want to hope has a long tail. You're going to want people they want it to be the next Skyrim. They want people to make mods for it. They want people to be playing it in loads of different ways, starting new playthroughs, different types of character classes, blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, what they wanted for Cyberpunk, they wanted Cyberpunk to be that long tail game, sandbox kind of game where you could replay it over and over again, have a different experience every time. And because they drove such a negative halo effect over it, then it just sort of killed it. I think it did sell like 14. I think they announced it sold 14 million copies in the end, Cyberpunk, which ain't bad by any means, but like Elden Ring's already hit that in like a couple of months, and it launched in a polished state. The game Elden Ring is damn polished. Like there's a few little bugs here and there, but it was damn polished, right?
Yeah.
I think, and now like, part of me wonders, Miles, if they saw Elden Ring and thought, damn, if we want to, we need to get our game to be at least in the same quality state as Elden Ring before we launch, because Starfield would have been directly compared to Elden Ring this year if it had launched this year. People would have been like, well, Elden Ring launched polished. Why isn't Starfield launching polished,
Yeah, but, it would have been impossible because, again, a lot of people, I've been talking about how I didn't really see a game beating out Elden Ring for Game of the Year, and I saw a lot of people say, well, what about Starfield? And again, like you touched on, there's going to be obvious comparisons if Starfield dropped this year. And again, I joked on Twitter about, developers seeing Elden Ring, like, oh, damn, let's delay our game. Obviously, it's not that simple, and there's a lot more time that goes into it than that. But, I mean, you have people playing Elden Ring, looking at it, and, as you touched on, it is really polished. People can complain about the frame rate here and there, but the overall experience in terms of just bugs and game-breaking issues for an open-world game, for a game of that scale, as much as I love Bethesda, they have never been known for shipping games without a bunch of bugs. And they're funny. Most of the time when I see an ogre just flying through the sky, that doesn't bother me. It doesn't ruin my experience. When I open a cave door and there's just a dragon in the ground, it's funny. It's not going to ruin the experience for me. But that being said, if you are trying to ship a game under the new Xbox Game Studios banner, and you are trying to, make a mission statement saying that Bethesda games will be better because of this acquisition, because that's what they told us. Let's be real. Let's zero hyperbole. They told us that, the Bethesda games will be better than they ever were, and that was the reason we should be excited about this partnership. And you can't just say that and not do it. Like Xbox in particular, a lot of people say they're held to an unfair standard. In some cases, sure, maybe we can draw comparisons, but a lot of times we're just holding them to the standard that they are telling us to hold them to. And I think with Starfield, I was in the same camp. I saw that release date being super far out, and I said, okay, maybe they're just giving themselves a lot of time to bug fix. Because the reason the Elden Ring launched so polished is because that team gives themselves basically a minimum of a year to polish, which is wild. That is a lot of time to make sure your game is polished. So I thought maybe with Starfield, that was the case. Redfall, I will be honest, was not surprised about that delay. They had told us the game was coming in summer, and it's May, and we haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything. We haven't seen any gameplay. So Redfall not coming, that wasn't as surprising to me. But I'm in the same camp with Starfield. I thought that was a sure bet, and I thought that they, with that release date being so far out, gave themselves ample time, and that was the only reason they put a release date out into the world. But as we're learning, that release date was tied to the anniversary of Skyrim, and that was more important than the realistic timeline of the game. So how did this hit you, Jez? How did all of this, when you first saw this news, how did you feel? What was your gut reaction when you saw that Xbox's two biggest games of 2022 were no longer coming in 2022?
Well, I personally wasn't so bothered because I've already waited this long for it. And maybe I'm just at that age now where I just like, my backlog is huge, I almost like, I almost appreciate it in a way. I might go back. There's loads of games in my backlog that I want to go and play. I want to go and play Yakuza. I want to go and finish Dragon Quest. I want to play that new, I can't pronounce the name, Chronicles JRPG that came out last week.
Yuden Chronicle Rising?
The Chronicle Rising, yeah. I want to play that
maybe
as well.
brutalizing how to pronounce it, but I think that's it.
Yeah. Like, there's loads of games to play, and I think, like, yeah, it sucks for, like, the console war and people arguing on Twitter and stuff, but when I think about me and what I want to play, there's so much else to play, It sucks for the narrative, and it sucks for the perception that Xbox can deliver, but it's not like these games are going to get cancelled, is it? They're going to come out eventually, and hopefully they will come out polished and finished and stuff like that, There's just so much else to play. So in my heart of hearts, I don't feel that bothered about it, I don't feel that bothered about it. Like Rick Payne in chat saying, play Weird West. That's another game I want to play.
Oh, yeah.
I got Weird West installed. I haven't even opened it yet. I started playing a horror game called Paratopic yesterday. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah, that
Paratopic.
I remember when that first came out. It got a lot of like traction and awards, if I remember right. I think it launched in 2018 originally.
Yeah, it's a really weird game. It's got like PS1 graphics, and it runs in Xbox's app layer. It doesn't run in the game layer. It runs in the app layer, which is so strange. Which means you can't take any captures from it, and it's just such a weird game. But you know, that's what I'm talking about. There's just so much else to play. So personally, for me, I'm not so bothered. And another thing is, I know Microsoft has games they're going to announce that are launching in 2022. On June 12th, they're going to announce some games that are launching in 2022. Like they're not going to have a blank slate. Like a lot of people are saying, oh, the slate's blank now because they don't have Starfield and Redfall. That's not true. There are still games going to launch in 2022, and they're going to be announced on June 12th. So it's not like there's not going to be anything to play. But, you know, there's still that whole question mark of getting the consistency there. I want to see Microsoft start delivering consistency. Unlike a lot of people, I still have patience, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of doubt of COVID and all that stuff this year. But if like we get to next year and the year after, and it's like still we got all these problems, games launching in a messy sort of half-baked state, Halo Infinite, like launching without a plan in place for its live service, even though they were making a live service game. They knew they were making a live service game. Where the hell's the live service? It's not very live. It's sort of like in this sort of half-life sort of state. And, you know, these kind of issues are the things that I want to see them fix. You know, I can wait for a game. I can wait for Starfield to be delayed. I'd rather have it polished. I'd rather have it avoid the Cyberpunk situation. It's not like no game's getting delayed. Everyone is expecting God of War Ragnarok to be delayed. You know, I think like that's the big rumor now that that's going to hit a delay. But it's all about consistency and quality, and also lining up the marketing with the reality of the game's development. Don't announce a game if it's not ready to launch, or not a game's launch date if it's not ready to launch. You know, stop doing that. You know, I don't care if shareholders cry and they start thinking like, oh no, we're not going to have any quarterly earnings next month or whatever. It's manipulation. You know, just announce things when they're ready. You know,
I've said this previously, but these companies need to have hard conversations with these shareholders when it comes to the realities of video game development, and say, and just stop appeasing to them, because a lot of these decisions are designed to appease to them. They're not designed to appease the quality of the game. They're not designed to appease the complaints of the team. They are designed to appease shareholders. And you have to, if you are someone investing in the video game industry, sure, there is a lot of money going around right now. There's a lot of money to be made, but these people need to tell these shareholders that the reality of game development is not as cut and dry as, let's just put a date out into the world because it sounds cool and we'll try to hit that. Like, I agree, that needs to stop. That really, really needs to stop. As much as we complain about wanting release dates and when to know a game is coming, putting a hard release date out in the world that means nothing, people are tired of it. And as we saw with Starfield, people did not take it well in a lot of cases.
Like I just want more transparency. Like I mean, it's funny that I say that actually, because earlier I said like I didn't like the Dead Space animation they put out, and it looked janky and half baked. But you said they put out another video and they'd polished it up and made it look better, you know. And that's my fault for not keeping up to date with it. But I do feel like a lot of the issues about Starfield is we haven't seen anything of it. We don't know what kind of game it is. We don't know if a delay is justified. If they show off the gameplay for Starfield, and presumably they are going to show something for Starfield at E3, maybe the scope and ambition of the game will justify a delay. I think like when Elden Ring, you know, I think they announced Elden Ring was getting delayed last year or something, didn't they? If I'm remembering right. Did they announce Elden Ring was getting delayed?
Yeah, because it was supposed to come out in what, January?
Yeah. I don't know. They announced like delays for games usually after we've seen some gameplay, and it's sort of like Elden Ring getting delayed. It almost felt like it would have been justified because we sort of know what kind of scope of game it's going to be. You know, open world Dark Souls, you know, and FromSoft, like CD Projekt Red before them, they've built up a lot of social capital, in the sense that you can trust them and you can like trust that the delay they're offering a delay, and that in the result of the delay we'll get something quality out of it. Whereas like this, we don't even know what Starfield is. We don't. I mean, all we've got is the hope that it's like a sci-fi Skyrim, sci-fi space Fallout kind of game. You know that much, but maybe it goes further. Maybe there's like space combat. We don't. That's a rumor. We don't know if it's true. Maybe you can build your own lunar bases on the moon. I don't know. Fallout 4 had base building. Maybe this has it too. But maybe it's even more complicated. Maybe there's some sort of asynchronous multiplayer features like Watch Dogs or something, where you can see other players' spaceships, and maybe there's cloud features. I don't know. Maybe the delay is justified, and if we'd seen what Starfield is, then we'd be less mad about it. But I don't know.
Yeah. So when I first saw this, obviously I wasn't stoked. Starfield obviously was a very the big game. That's a game I'd see a lot of people really, really passionate about, really excited about. I publicly said that sci-fi RPGs in particular aren't necessarily my forte. It's not my favorite genre per se. So I wasn't gung-ho on Starfield, but I was really excited to see what a new Bethesda IP would be. And that promise of the November date was really exciting for people on the Xbox side who were waiting through a objectively slow year for first party stuff. In my personal life, I have a Switch, I have a PC, I have a PS5, and I have a Series X and Series S. So those delays for me personally didn't impact me all that much because as much as people want to hear this is an Xbox show. Nintendo's year's stacked, y'all. Nintendo has so many games coming out. Like, there's no shortage of games to play. But that being said, for the people who, if you are someone who primarily plays on Xbox, if that is your main platform, you've invested in this platform, you bought into the promises of Xbox Game Pass, for example, which is supposed to, have these big first-party games coming to the service somewhat regularly, that's a bummer. It's a huge, huge bummer. So I'm not here to tell anyone not to be mad. If you're frustrated, if you're disappointed, I get it. I really, really do, because the thing for me that's, I guess, disappointing or upsetting is that very recently, Phil Spencer, Satya Nadella, they came out, they had this impassioned PR buzz talking about how they're trying to ship one big first party game per quarter. And then they literally have their lightest year probably ever in terms of big first party games. And that messaging to me is just odd. Like, the timing of that, it's just weird. Like, they had to know kind of sort of what their next year looked like. And so I think ultimately I understand people's frustrations. And ultimately, if you primarily play on Xbox, I think a lot, as we've seen this week on Twitter, a lot of people are tired of waiting. A lot of people are tired of hearing, just wait for this, just wait for this. Like, at this point, a lot of people have waited a long time, and those frustrations are just starting to boil up. And all of these things that isolated, the Starfield delay isolated, not a big deal for me personally. I always do and always will champion the devs. And if they need a delay, they need a delay. People were really mad at me when I said that Halo Infinite should not ship without co-op. If they need to delay it, they delay it. People were very mad at me for saying that. So, I'm not going to be mad about the Starfield delay. I'm not going to be mad about the Redfall delay. But I also, sympathize with the Xbox people, and especially the people who only have an Xbox, because the promise of this gen is still really exciting. And generally speaking, I am still really excited about the future. But hope that future needs to come sooner for some people, because people are losing patience, Jez.
I think it's completely fair, to not. I've got a lot of patience. I got a lot of games to play. I'm a World of Warcraft player, which takes up a lot of my gaming time. So I'm just speaking for me personally. It doesn't bother me so much. I got a lot to play and I'm happy with it. But I also I completely understand and empathize with people who are frustrated, especially when you factor in, like, if you are a Game Pass subscriber, you need games to justify subscribing, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm someone who converted like several years of Game Pass, Xbox Live into Game Pass. So I'm like, I've got Game Pass up to 2023 anyway. But like, if you're someone who, like, you're looking for, if you focus on Game Pass and it's like, well, there's nothing to play right now, just unsubscribe. Vote with your wallet, because that's ultimately where Microsoft is judging a lot of its performance right now, is on Game Pass subscriptions. And if lots of people unsubscribe to Game Pass because there's nothing great to play right now, that sort of creates an impetus on them to sort of keep the quality up. And I've got a friend who literally bought an Xbox when Starfield was announced as exclusive. They literally bought an Xbox for Starfield, you know. And they literally sent me a DM the other day, like, "What the hell's going on? You know, where's Starfield?"
Where's Star?
So
Oh.
you know, it's not a good look, but at the same time, it is what it is. You know,
And
would you rather have a buggy game, or would you rather have a delayed game? I'd rather have a delayed game every time. I'd rather have a delayed game and devs that aren't like having to work 16-hour days to get this game shipped. There's other stuff to play, and
it's again, this is an Xbox focused show, and we're talking about Xbox, but we also can't ignore that Nintendo had an incredibly light year last year. A lot of their release schedule was delayed because of the pandemic. PlayStation as well. A lot of their games have been delayed or postponed or don't have release windows because of the pandemic. A lot of people are kind of scared to announce games, or they were scared last year to announce games because they weren't sure of, how things were going to evolve and play out with that situation. So that's just the reality, regardless of, if you're Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo, that is the reality. So obviously we're going to focus on Xbox and talk about Xbox, but again, just want to stress that we can't really just ignore that factor of the equation.
And I really hate the comparison to Nintendo, and I'll tell you why. Because if Microsoft and Sony put out games that looked like Nintendo Switch games, they'd get skewered for it. If Starfield had 3 polygons, like Pokemon Sword and Shield do, they'd get skewered for it. They'd be like, "What the hell are these graphics? They look like they're from the PS1 era." If Nintendo does it, it's fine. Nintendo releases a game that looks like it belonged on the GameCube. No one bats an eyelid.
But we gotta look at the raw power. I mean, if the Xbox Series X was putting out games at 720p, 30 FPS, sure. But if the Nintendo Switch, which we all know is not a powerhouse, we know what it can do.
That's fine. But it's just the reality of things that if you want a photorealistic game, it takes longer to make.
Play Witcher 3 on Switch and tell me that looks ideal. Oof.
Yeah, it's just I think Nintendo makes games that are highly infectiously fun, that look like they came from the Xbox 360 era, and games were easy to make in the 360 era. So if you want like photorealistic games, you can't really compare the development pipeline to Nintendo. I feel like the demand on art assets for a game like God of War or Starfield is astronomically different to Nintendo games. But yeah,
and that's why games like Starfield takes to make, and that's just kind of the reality. Is if you're excited about it, you got to wait, and then if you want a new Fallout, Lord help you, that might come at some point in time, but not from Bethesda anytime soon, not in this decade. But yeah, so the situation on the Xbox camp, as we've seen from a lot of people, it's not the most optimistic right now. A lot of people are very upset, and like I said, I'm not going to tell you not to be upset. There are reasons to be upset, absolutely, especially if you are primarily
be skeptical of Xbox.
Yeah,
any company, you should be skeptical and hold them to account. Definitely,
because as we've seen with marketing beats, as we've seen with messaging, a company at the end of the day is trying to sell you something. A company is trying to make money off of you. As much as Xbox does a really good job promoting itself as a cool, fun brand with a cool personality, and you can connect and engage with that, they are still a business, and there are still people that need to get paid, and there still are financial aspects of to the things that they're doing. But what I want to kind of shift this conversation to, we know Starfield, we know Redfall is delayed. You briefly touched on this. But how can Xbox fill these gaps? And do you think they're going to be able to successfully fill the gap of something like Starfield in 2022?
They're not going to fill the Starfield gap, because let's face it, Starfield is going to be a big game, very on a galactic scale. So I don't think they'll fill the gap. But there are games I'm expecting them to announce between this E3 and next E3. I'm expecting to see Josh Sawyer's game from Obsidian, Pentiment, which hasn't even been announced yet. But like that should be like a fun sort of mystery thriller or sort of narrative RPG to play. I'm also expecting Project Belfry between now and next E3. Belfry's sort of like, it's from what I understand, it's like Castle Crashers as a service game. It's
I mean,
got multiplayer. I've heard
on
it's got
paper,
base
I like
building.
that. I love a good side-scrolling beat 'em up, and if you can give me reasons to keep coming back, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the gameplay works. I think Jeff Grubb said it gave him a Castle Crashers vibe, but I found out recently that it's got cloud features and it's got like a social hub where players can meet each other, and it's got multiplayer features and stuff. So it sounds like a much bigger game than maybe I'd given it credit for initially. That's from Stoic, who make the Banner Saga games, which I've never played but look really cool. I've got them on my wish list, and I'm waiting for them to go on sale because they're pretty pricey.
It's one of those games, a series that I have installed but have not played. So again, touching back on the backlog, there are so many games I'm just looking at right now and have been looking at for years that I need to beat. But...
Yeah, I always saw Banner Saga pop up on like the store, and I was like, "What is that game? It looks intriguing," and I just never bought it for whatever reason. And I'm just sort of waiting for it to go on sale. But I don't know. It is what it is. But yeah, and there's going to be other surprises too. There might even be games that me and Jeff haven't even heard about, or any other insider. Maybe they've got like some super secret games. Maybe they've got some partnerships in Japan or some other countries, and I want to believe that they've got a good slate of stuff, good slate of surprises to sort of get us excited between now and next E3, or at least get us excited for the future, because I think they really need a win right now. They had a lot of momentum for the last few months. They're teasing Starfield left, right, and center. They had like record non-holiday season revenue last quarter. xCloud's starting to wind up. They bought Fortnite to xCloud for free, which is, that's going to make them a lot of money, I would imagine. And all this other stuff. We got Fall Guys coming, probably. Finally.
Yeah, that was not a very subtle tease, but yeah, thankfully, finally. I've talked about Xbox missing the Fall Guys party, and I will definitely check it out on the Xbox. I have it on PC. I'm hoping it can kind of get a second wind with that audience, because I'm excited. Every now and then I just want a dumb, fun game, something I can play a few rounds of, and like maybe it's not a game I grind every single day, but there's still value in those little bite-sized, fun, silly experiences. And Xbox, they need it. They need experiences like that. I don't want every single Xbox game to be a 200-hour RPG. I really and truly don't. So yes, Fall Guys. I am excited for that to come finally after.
We should stream it. We should stream some Fall Guys.
Let's go. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit about Game Pass. We're talking about filling gaps. We're gonna have a section about the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase, but before we dive into that, knowing what we know about what's on the horizon for third-party deals, because we put a lot of stake in first-party stuff, but a lot of the biggest games of the year are third-party. They're not even first-party titles. Do you think there are any games that Xbox should be targeting aggressively, either for day and date in Game Pass, or titles that have already launched recently that should maybe come to the service as a way to keep people who are subscribed to Game Pass happy? Because they're not going to have a lot of huge first-party games to fill those gaps, so they need something in the service.
I've always thought Souls-like games are ideal for Game Pass, because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I'm not sure that will appeal to me. I don't want to risk dropping the money on it." So like, if they could land Elden Ring for Game Pass, I think that'd be a great win for like a section of the market. Because that's a game that has a lot of hype behind it. But it's almost like I feel like that'd cost them a lot of money.
Yes,
and they could probably get 2 smaller games for the same price, probably.
I was joking about like ahead of the launch that would be like a $500 million deal, and people are like, "No, dude, no way." And then we see it sell like 15 million copies in a month and a half, and like maybe that's not such an outlandish figure. So I imagine now that Bandai has that data they're sitting on, they're like, "All right, Xbox, you want to wheel and deal? What's it worth to you? What's it worth getting Elden Ring on Game Pass?" So like you said, outside of Elden Ring, which I think would be a stellar get, and it would kind of feed into the narrative of Xbox Game Pass getting really great quality games, what other games on the horizon do you think I shouldn't say have a chance, or would you want to see launch in the service?
I would really love Diablo 4 to launch into Game Pass. I think there's a deal that exists, especially because they're buying Activision, especially because Diablo 4 is going to be a fixed camera perspective game, which works really damn well on cloud. And like we've seen from Hades, like the algorithm, when a game has a fixed camera perspective and doesn't need to constantly update shadows moving around a 3D environment, it works really, really well. Like it almost feels like native, at least in Germany. Where I'm in Germany, I play Streets of Rage or Hades. It feels native on my phone. So I think Diablo would be an amazing get, not just for cloud, but also because I believe Microsoft has a marketing deal for Diablo. And also they're buying Activision, so it gets Diablo associated with the Xbox brand. And also, I think Diablo could get its launch date announcement fairly soon, Diablo 4. The project seems to be coming along pretty nicely, from what I've heard. And I think that could be like a really big get for them to have sort of like a headline like Diablo 4, Game
Launching
Pass,
Day one.
launching into Game Pass. That's what I would gun for if I was Xbox. If indeed, I think there is a possibility Diablo 4 could launch this year, like December or something like that. Maybe it's even going to be at the Xbox E3 showcase. That's just a vague guess. Maybe it's super optimistic and naive, but I think that'd be a big get. I think if Diablo is launching this year, like in December or November, and Microsoft has the marketing for it, I would make that my headline action game for the end of the year and drop it straight into Game Pass.
And that would be a good way to kind of, again, probably not for some people going to fill the Starfield gap per se, but that would still be a huge, noteworthy, meaty RPG launching in the service as well that people could sink weeks and weeks into. So if that is coming, which that would be rad. That would be really cool to see that coming this year. That would be a good one. One that I have been thinking about that's, maybe not going to set the world on fire per se, but I still think would be a good get and a realistic target, because Call of Duty, PlayStation has the marketing rights. That we're not going to see that. That's as much as the deal, is on the table. That's not going to happen. But Saints Row. I know a lot of people weren't super stoked on the initial reveal of Saints Row, but some of the supplemental stuff we've seen, I think that could be a really cool, like worthwhile, noteworthy third-party title that could launch into Xbox Game Pass, not cost an infinite amount of money to get, and it has co-op as well. So it would be a good way that, subscribers could play with friends and, maybe check this game out that they wouldn't normally. Because I love Saints Row. I just don't know what the current market demand for a Saints Row is. So I'm curious to see how that performs. And I think Game Pass would be a nice little boost for that. And it would be a good way to have a noteworthy title launching into the service as well. All right, Jez, before we get into kind of our expectations with the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase post the Redfall Starfield delay, I'm going to get to a couple super chats, give a quick shout out to the 470 people joining us live. If you are digging this show, smash that like button, share it out. We still got a bit to dive into here. Sorry, as I scroll into the void of the... There's some good worthwhile conversations happening in the chat. Most of them civil, which I appreciate. Appreciate you guys getting in here and talking and not fighting. I know that's the instinct sometimes. All right, Jonas the Dad says, okay, with Unreal 5 becoming the standard, will this allow AAA game dev time to get down to 18 to 24 months versus 5 to 6 years? Do you think that Unreal 5 will dramatically streamline development to a point where, in Jonas's case here, it cuts development time in half? Or do you think it's just going to make games visually look a lot better, but they'll still take 5 years?
I mean, without being a dev, I can't say what effect Unreal Engine 5 is going to have on development pipelines. I mean, I've seen some absolutely insane videos of some like mega scans in Unreal Engine 5 that just look real. You can't tell the difference. Like we really are with Unreal Engine 5. We're approaching that uncanny valley where you can't even tell what's real anymore. So Unreal Engine 5 is very exciting, but I don't know what effect it'll have on the speed of development. But I do think like that's one thing they're very conscious of is like, how can we make development faster? How can we speed things up? How can we get more games out there in a quicker, cheaper cadence, and using AI to develop assets, to make trees and stuff like that, just foliage. That has to be something they're looking at to speed the process up, because I think we are heading a point where speed is becoming an issue,
Yeah.
especially in the post-COVID world. So I'll have to talk to some people and find out. I don't know if you know anything on that front, Miles. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I kind of think that with big budget AAA games as we know it, the reason that takes so long is they're trying to make these games and these experiences huge, massive. Your Starfields, your Elden Rings, where it's this idea and formula that once upon a time maybe could have been done in 2 years, and now that's just not feasible. As the scope and scale of these games increase, as the ambitions increase, that takes more and more time. And if people are happy with smaller experiences that aren't 100-hour open world RPGs, we can probably get them quicker. But the expectation has been set for a lot of people that big budget games need to be huge. They need to be massive. I need to be able to spend all this time in it. So I don't think that Unreal 5 is going to fundamentally increase the overall time or reduce the overall time of development, but I do think it will streamline certain features and aspects so that in 5 years you can have a game that performs better, looks better, and has more mechanics, as opposed to the current situation where it takes 5 years to really do anything. So it'll be interesting to see once that becomes the mainstay, because like you touched on, there was that tech demo of the like Japanese subway that was going around recently that was supposedly like rendered in Unreal 5, and that looked absolutely realistic. Even the way the camera was swaying and bobbing, like that looked photorealistic. And if we can get games that
was
look
crazy.
like that, ooh, a horror game in Unreal 5, I'm just ready. I'm ready and waiting for it to see what that can really do. Mr. Joanna Dark. Oh, gee. Okay. Super chat for you, Jez. Jez, you are a man of culture, and I would like to know your thoughts on Resident Evil Code Veronica. Should Capcom remaster this masterpiece? I have to ask.
I think they should have remastered Code Veronica before 4, personally. I love Code Veronica. I think it's a great game. It has some very bad voice acting, but so did 1, 2, and 3, especially 1.
Oh yeah.
Code Veronica has some curious narrative choices. The relationship between
curious is putting it lightly.
Yeah, the relationship between the Ashford twins is a little bit strange, but I loved it. Like, I loved the boss battles, super memorable. It was brutally hard. I felt it was like when I was a kid. I remember like coming in from Resident Evil 3 and playing Code Veronica and thinking, my God, this is a lot harder. Like, you know, I remember feeling that way. That was the first game I played on my Dreamcast. It was Code Veronica.
Shout out to the Dreamcast.
Yeah. Good times, but I don't know. Capcom kind of act like Code Veronica doesn't exist. I think that's kind of mean.
It's not good. It's I think the people who like it
lies.
Had a Dreamcast and they were desperate for games, and I think that is 100% of the people who enjoy Code Veronica in my eyes. Because I didn't play Code Veronica.
It's better than 0? I mean, do you think 0 was better? Resident Evil 0?
I think 0 and Code Veronica are the two worst. So it's tough. I really dislike both of those for different reasons.
I really like Veronica.
Maybe I'm just remembering it. You're not the only one, but statistically speaking, let me know in the chat if the people who like Code Veronica played it on Dreamcast. I need to do a social experiment, because I think it's this mass hypnosis that people are like, Code Veronica is a good game. I'm like, what are you talking about? How? What world do I live in where that's a good game? But I've ranted about it enough. I'm not going to dive into it, but people like it. You're not the only one. You're definitely not the only one. Dreamcast guy, he posted about it the other day, and Dreamcast guy. Coincidence? I think not.
Oh yeah. Wow, you might have stumbled upon something there. I remember being mind blown as a kid when I got when you get the sniper rifle, and like there's that boss battle where you have to snipe the dude. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing! First person. I think it was like the first first person game I might have played on console. I think, maybe.
Dang, okay. Yeah, I played like, Code Veronica on PS2 after the fact, so I didn't play it on Dreamcast, but I did play it back in its day, and I remember going, this is where Resident Evil died. That's when I lost hope in the franchise. I was like, I loved 1, I loved 2. Resident Evil 3 came, and I was like, what's going on here? What's and then
I loved 3 as well.
And then Code Veronica hit, and I was like, okay. And then 4 came out, and I was like, all right, okay, maybe this franchise it's still kicking. It's still got some life in it. It's been a roller coaster.
That's so weird. I felt that way about 4.
You thought
I was
4
like,
was the death?
Yeah.
What?
I loved 3. I loved Code Veronica.
What?
And I was like, what's this arcade shit where zombies are dropping bullets? And like there's random loot and there's loot boxes and there's a vendor. I was like, this isn't survival horror. They're making turn it into an action game. So I felt that way about Resident Evil 4. And then I look online and like everyone's raving about 4 being the savior of Resident Evil. And I'm like, man, nah. It's all about that classic survival horror, man. 4 reminded me of how I felt about Dino Crisis 2, but I actually enjoyed Dino Crisis 2 as well. So
is this?
I don't know.
This might be just a fever dream I had, but was Dino Crisis 3 an Xbox exclusive? I vaguely remember Dino Crisis 3,
maybe.
and it was not a good game, but for some
Wasn't
reason,
it in space or something?
Yeah, it was on like a spaceship. For some reason, I remember it being an Xbox exclusive. Again, maybe this is just a total fever dream. So correct me if I'm wrong there. But anyway, fun little side Capcom rant. All right, Achievement says cancel Starfield and put him on scale map. Stop it right now. All right, Sebastian Martinez says Starfield map could be even bigger than Elden Ring. Based on what we've heard, it seems like I imagine the scope and scale of Starfield would be significantly bigger than Elden Ring, but I want to see what that means. I want to see what that looks like. All right, I'm making sure I'm all caught up. One more. Hey Blinken says, with my conspiracy Steve hat on, what if the delays are to make Xbox look better for the regulators in the ABK deal? I don't think that's a thing, personally. Am I off base there, Jez?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, Jez, let's talk about our expectations for the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase. Now that we know Starfield's not dropping this year, Redfall is not dropping this year, what do you think are the prominent titles that will be shown at the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase? Do you still think Bethesda or Starfield will be a big portion? Because their image for this showcase is a moon. There is a big, massive moon for this. So I have to imagine Starfield is still a bulk of this show.
I think Starfield will be there. It has to be there. You know, I think like it'd be so strange if like after all this time we don't see anything of Starfield. I think like we should get at least some gameplay trailer that we can analyze and scrutinize and sort of get a taste of what the game actually is. You know, it's weird that we know more about Hellblade than Starfield, which is supposed to be this big flagship game that was supposed to launch in 6 months, and do they not have anything that looks playable? You know, that would worry me if Starfield didn't feature there at all. You know. And then I know everyone will be talking about like, man, is Starfield in such a bad state that they couldn't even show anything at this showcase? And then we'll be like talking about it coming to the Game Awards in the winter, I guess. But yeah, I think Starfield will be there. But I do think like one of the things they're going to try and do with this show is produce a roadmap of sorts of games that we can look forward to in the near future. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Project Belfry will be there. I think Pentiment will be there. They'll probably like show off some of their plans for the Grounded 1.0, maybe the next big Sea of Thieves update. They'll talk about a lot of stuff they wanna bring in the near term so that people feel like they've got something to look forward to, I guess. But
Sorry, I'm truthful says
know.
Starfield delays because they will add 4-player co-op and change the name to Brute Force. I think that's happening. So yeah, I still think that Starfield and Redfall will be big portions of the show. I still think this will be when we get the gameplay reveals for these titles. Because I agree. I can't imagine that they don't have something that they can possibly show for those titles. And again, I think a roadmap would go a long way to quell some of the conversations that are happening right now. And I think the main reason that they came out a month ahead of this showcase and said, this is the situation, is so people can have that time to kind of come to terms with that harsh reality and not have that dominate the entire show. Because if they announce a delay at the show, oof, that would absolutely diminish anything that they showed of merit for these titles. So I think I've had people ask why they did it a month ahead. I think that's why, give people time to come to terms with it, and then when the show comes around, we can talk about the gameplay. We can talk about what we saw, because another big criticism from the Xbox community is lack of gameplay. We know what Xbox's roadmap looks like in terms of logos and in terms of CG teasers, but we don't know what it looks like in terms of what the games will be and how they will feel. So I think, and I hope, that this showcase will have a lot of gameplay for stuff that was previously announced. Outside of Redfall, Starfield, do you think we see gameplay reveals for anything else that has been announced? Avowed, Perfect Dark, Fable, Everwild. What else? What else has officially been? The State of Decay 3.
Contraband is probably going to be there. I would expect Contraband to be there. I think State of Decay is probably further off.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's there's a chance we could see Everwild emerge in some way, because I saw that the team was sort of posting pictures recently and sort of teasing and stuff, and I kind of feel like the fact that they're popping their head up almost sort of maybe coincides with the fact that they've had something to submit as part of the show. Maybe we'll get an idea of what Everwild actually is. I also think there's going to be a lot of third-party stuff there. I think, like I say, I believe Diablo 4 will be there. I believe we could see some other games crop up with marketing. I think Sony has the marketing on Harry Potter, don't they? But
yeah, Sony has the marketing for Harry Potter and Call of Duty.
Yeah, so maybe there's other games that could show up there. Maybe EA's got something to show. Maybe maybe we could see Compulsion's game. Maybe we could see Avowed gameplay. Hopefully, it's just gameplay. I wouldn't mind CGI announcement trailers for Project Dragon,
yes,
or some of the other projects, like maybe Indus, the Civ kind of game, stuff like that. I think they're gonna have a good show. I know everyone's deflated right now, and people they're not hyped anymore and stuff like that. But I really do think this is going to be a really great show this year. I want to believe that, and
they had a really great show last year. I think there's a lot of negative conversations right now, and like you said, people are deflated about the situation. But last year, a lot of people, myself included, thought that was probably their best show that they put on. So I think they kind of know what the expectation is now from these showcases, and I agree. I do think and hope that this will be gameplay centric, and I would love to see titles like Everwild, because again, the reality is, if you're immersed in Xbox discourse on Twitter, you've only been seeing negative things. Everwild is in, quote, development hell. State of Decay 3, the studio culture is not great. There's been a lot of negative things about these games. We've heard negative things from people outside of Xbox about these projects, and nothing from Xbox. So I really hope that we can see stuff for something like Everwild that shows hey, we are working on this. We do have something we're showing. This isn't in development hell, and stuff like that will go a long way to kind of quell a lot of these criticisms and concerns. I do think CG for new reveals is fine. If we had a couple really big surprises or something really, really noteworthy to get just people talking, I think that would be exciting. If we got the Kojima Xbox Cloud reveal, something like that, even if it is just a mega teaser, because I don't think that's very far in development, but something. I want that one thing that either nobody saw coming, or that everybody has been kind of talking about feverishly and fighting back and forth about, just to have that conversation piece. And so I want it to be a good mix of gameplay for what we know about, and then a couple new reveals to get people excited and show that Xbox still will have this ongoing slate of titles coming. What's your dream? I posted this question on Twitter here, and so I'll post it to you. I'll post it to the chat. But what is a reveal that is not going to happen at the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase that you want to happen at the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase?
What is my dream? Oh man. That's an interesting one. I want to say, I don't think, a special Nick our buddy at Xbox Era thinks Killer Instinct's being made. I want to believe that's true, but I kind of don't. You know,
If I hear
got the
that title track though, I will get so hyped. If we just hear that guitar lick.
Yeah.
So you don't think that one? You don't think that's happening?
I don't think it's happening. I don't think it's happening at the moment. I mean, I could be wrong, but I want to believe. But that's like Killer Instinct 2. Like when they announced the Killer Instinct reboot in 2013, it was such a hype moment for me.
Yeah, dude, that was so good.
Yeah, and I got so much nostalgia for that game. So if they are making a Killer Instinct 2 and it's gonna have like a beefy campaign and stuff like that, that would be so hype. But I just don't believe. Deep down, I don't believe. Also, even if this was real, it would be way too early. But I really want a Gears Tactics 2. I know I'm in the minority here, but I really think Gears Tactics has like something special about it. And if they can only like push further into that XCOM territory to give it a metagame layer that has like more management features and just, you know, more variety, more time to bake in the oven, I think Gears Tactics could be really great, especially in a world where we don't have any XCOM anymore. You know, I think like the next XCOM, the next game Firaxis is making is like I think it's a Guardians of the Galaxy XCOM.
It's the Midnight Suns, the Marvel Midnight Suns, right?
That's yeah, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't like Marvel. I don't. It's lame. Marvel's lame. I want.
You're gonna start fights with people here. I feel that. I know a lot of I'm not big into isometric stuff, really. That's like just not my jam. But I know a lot of people really love the campaign for Gears Tactics. I had a lot of people tell me that the storytelling and the story that they built with Gears Tactics was incredible. And so stuff like that, like I love Gears. I'm for anything Gears, even if it's not for me personally. Keep Gears content pumping, and we know that Gears 6 is not coming anytime soon. We'll get that someday, maybe. I mean, definitely, but I just don't have any realistic timeline for that. But Gears Tactics 2, that would be an interesting one. Is that your pick? That's the one that's not going to happen, but you want?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's probably other things that I could think of, but I mean, what are yours? I know one of them has to be like Legend of Mana or something.
See, I have two. Phantom Dust.
Oh, I'm gonna add. On that note, I'm also gonna add Persona. I'd love to see Persona 3, 4, and 5 come to Xbox.
I want the Weeb showcase. I want just a Weeb montage in the middle of the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase where it's like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Persona, Legend of Mana, Trials of Mana, Secret of Mana. Yay, they're all coming to Xbox and they're all launching an Xbox Game Pass. Woo. That would be one that I don't think is going to happen, but I would be very excited. And then Phil Spencer uncancels the Phantom Dust reboot. And he gives me a personal shout out for making it happen. Because Cold Iron Studios, the developers of Aliens Fireteam Elite, is developing the Phantom Dust reboot. And if that happens, I'm suing. Oh, yeah. I'm literally suing if that happens. I'm saying. If I don't get financial credit for that, I am suing. Okay.
Man, I really like the look of the Phantom Dust CGI trailer looked really intriguing, and then that gameplay leaked after they shut it down, and I thought it looked pretty damn cool.
The physics were awesome, yeah. Like watching the environments crumble, watching the big fireball. Because why Phantom Dust is dope is because it's Magic the Gathering in terms of its deck building, the elemental systems, the variety, and then Dragon Ball Z in terms of action. So you're just Goku with a Magic the Gathering deck, and that formula is so perfect, and nobody else has ever done it since. There's been no game that's even come close to that. It's got this fundamentally incredible kind of arena-focused combat. In today's modern like games as a service climate, you could add new cards, you could add new abilities, you could do the battle pass. You could really do it up, but they're afraid. Xbox just can't handle the potential success. Even though I think Phantom Dust 1 sold like nothing. That game's infamously sold really, really poorly. But that being said,
when they,
it's incredible.
Yeah, when they re-released it, they didn't even put a price tag on it. They just made it free.
Yeah, they didn't even try to charge. They said, "Here's the remaster. It's free." Like Voodoo Vince as much as people like poop on Voodoo Vince, there was a price tag associated with Voodoo Vince. There was not one for Phantom Dust Remastered, which
Do you like Magic the Gathering?
I used to. It's too expensive for me now. It's too much to manage now. But back in my heyday, I got down on some Magic.
You might be interested in Project Indus then.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Project Indus is the 4X strategy game from Oxide, right? And I've heard that it has a card-based combat system. Like like in Civ, how you have like your little units and stuff. I've heard the units in Indus are cards that you play as units. So maybe it has like a cloud sort of gameplay element to it. But yeah, maybe that's going to be Xbox's card game is Indus.
Like Slay the Spire.
I've heard that
if you haven't played that, that's a fantastic deck building game.
Yeah.
Digital cards are the future, right, Jez?
Dude, I'm so addicted to Hearthstone.
Dude, I know you've been posting nothing but WoW and Hearthstone for a couple weeks now. You're all in.
I love Hearthstone. Like
you're late to the game. You're late to the game though.
I am late to the game. The game's still huge though. I was looking on Twitch the other day and like 30,000 people watching people play Hearthstone. I was like, man, this game's still big. It's bigger than Halo Infinite, you know. 50 million downloads on Hearthstone. It's probably bigger than World of Warcraft, you know.
Yeah, that's
maybe Xbox will have its own card game in Indus. I still have no idea what the setting is though. Like it could be like it's 4X strategy. It has cards. Maybe it's based on one of their existing IPs. Maybe it's like, I don't know, Halo tactical 4X strategy game or something. I have no idea. It could be. It could be based on existing IP. I have no idea. Or it could be completely new. I don't know. But there's a lot of things to be excited for.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with you. I think overall this showcase will be exciting. There will be some really cool stuff. And again, as much as, you know, we do have ideas of what's coming from certain teams, the stuff that I'm always most excited about as someone who's, you know, immersed in this industry and these conversations are the legit surprises. The ways that these companies managed to reveal something that didn't come out, nobody got a hold of, nobody even had any foggy clue that it was happening. Those are the things that I live for. Those moments where I just go, damn, the Evil Dead the game. If you're watching the stream live here, that reveal. There was no world ever where I thought that they were going to release a multiplayer asymmetrical horror Evil Dead game. There was no world where I thought we were even ever going to get another Evil Dead game. And to see that trailer, like nobody was talking about that. That just came out of nowhere. And those moments for me, those are what I live for. And I hope Xbox has just a few, one or two of those to just satiate my insatiable appetite for new games. Couple more super chats here. We got RDX Son of Fett who says, "Love Xbox, but tired of ponies making fun of us." Do you want to comment on that at all?
I don't know. It's just the internet, right? It's why I got 10,000 people blocked. If there's just people who are just negative and they want to make gaming into some kind of war, like I'm just too old for that shit. And I remember when I was in the playground, and two kids were having a fight over what was better, Final Fantasy VII or Ocarina of Time, and two kids were having a fight in the playground over there. That was a good how many years? 25 years ago. I'm too old for that shit now. You call me a console warrior, I just block. I don't even give you a chance to think about it. I just block. So like if you're seeing that shit on social media, Twitter or whatever, just block. Just block and play. You know, I'll get a PlayStation one day because I don't care about this plastic shit. You know, it's no big deal.
That's where I'm at. Like anyone using any of this stuff for any sort of console narrative, any platform narrative. That's designed to downplay another platform, I don't care. I don't like it. It's not interesting, and it's never genuine. The people doing that don't actually care about what's best for the games. They don't care about what's best for the teams. All they want to do is they want to get online and they want to fight about a silly rivalry that doesn't exist. The people who work for these companies, they don't have a rivalry. Phil Spencer's not like sending Jim Ryan hostile messages on Twitter. Like, these rivalries only exist for a weird outset of people who just want to fight online about something that, in the grand scheme of things, means nothing. Like, video games are such a trivial thing in our world. I love them. They're a big part of my life in terms of, what I do and what I talk about online. But in the grand scheme of things, of all the things that you can fight about, of all the things you can make a passionate claim about, of all the things you can call for someone to be fired from or, destroyed over, video games are not it. That is not it. So again, I understand this desire for the Xbox fans to have their clapback moment so they can dunk on all the PlayStation fanboys who've been mean to them the last couple of years. I get that mentality, but also that mentality, it's not healthy. It's not a good place to be. I'm just going to say that. Take a beat, realize that it doesn't matter, and like Jez said, just go play some video games. Please, for your own sake, do it. Do it. All right, what else do we got here? Basil007 says, With this delay of Redfall and Starfield force a lot of other games in development to be pushed further back? I don't think Microsoft is in a position right now to really hold games. Is that unfair? I don't think Microsoft's release schedule is packed enough where the delay of these games are going to affect the release schedules of other games. Maybe I'm being pessimistic.
I mean, I think like we said earlier, if Avowed fell in the same month as Starfield by some magic, I feel like they either would hold Avowed back to give it more breathing room, maybe, and maybe add some features or pile on more polish. I don't know. So I think there are situations where if you launch like Avowed and Starfield, similarly superficially similar games like RPG, probably have the same audience crossover. I think that's not great, but for generally speaking, they're not going to hold anything back. There's no I've seen people put out this idea that they might hold games back to sort of strategize about acquisitions or appease regulators or even to slip things into a different quarter financially and stuff. I think Microsoft's just in a position where they're just generally speaking, they'll release it when it's ready.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I hope they are, cognitive of similar games and similar genres and trying to, get to that strategy of one big game per quarter to kind of space them out. Because I agree. I don't want two massive open world RPGs from Xbox coming out really close to each other, because I think it's just silly. I mean, obviously, Starfield and Avowed probably have slightly different audiences, but I think generally speaking, there's a ton of crossover, and releasing stuff like that at the same time would be a weird move. Hey Blinken with the super chat says, Xbox make an RTS mashup game with several factions from StarCraft, Gears, Halo, Doom, and Skyrim. Okay. Like an Age of Mythology, but Age of Xbox? What would you call that? I want the Xbox platform fighter. I want the Xbox kart racer. Hell, let's do this RTS mashup here. I'm all for the dumb crossovers. Killer Instinct had some amazing crossovers. If that comes back, it better have more crossovers. Let's go. I want the Xbox cinematic universe. I want all these weird crossovers that shouldn't happen, that do exist. Like we had, what was it? The Halo Reach team in Gears 5. Where's the Gears guys in Halo? Where's Marcus? Why isn't Marcus Phoenix in Halo Infinite? What's going on here? There's too many people complaining. Well, Marcus Phoenix isn't technically in it in the lore, so canonically he can't be in the Halo Infinite multi. No, he better be in it, okay? And one more from Mondatrick, who says, "Give me back crunch in gaming studios. I'm your man." Mondatrick, legend. All right, Jez, one last quick topic just for fun here, because we've had some conversations about, some not overwhelmingly positive things, and I want to have a little fun here. And be warned for people who are averse to spoilers. This is about the Halo TV series, and this is about the latest episode of the Halo TV series. So if you don't want it to be spoiled, you can either pause it and wait a few minutes or just turn it off here. But if you've run on Twitter, this was spoiled instantly. And that's our boy Master Chief in the latest episode of the Halo series got some, y'all. He did it. Round of applause. Master Chief, after 20 years of hard work, Master Chief got out there and got some, y'all. So I want to ask you, because I've seen so many outrageous and outlandish and like heated takes about this episode of Master Chief or the Halo series. And I just want to say, I called this. I called it episode 2. As soon as we saw butt cheek, I said, Master Chief is having sex in this TV series. And boom, here we are. It happened. There was no, and sure, we all laughed at the time, but I was only half joking. This show was adding some sex appeal to Master Chief, and people are upset, Jez. So do you care? Have you even been watching the show? Like, do you care in the slightest?
Can't get it in Europe until next month.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
It doesn't come out in Europe till next month. I think there are ways to get it like via piracy, and I think it is on like some service, some obscure service literally nobody has. But I think it's becoming more generally available in June. But I ain't a big Halo guy. Like anyone who follows me on Twitter or knows me, like I'm not a massive fan of Halo's lore, or I think the games narratively are pretty dull, frankly. And a lot of the intrigue about the games is in the books, which I ain't gonna read. So I'm not a huge fan of the Halo universe in general. So, but that being said, I am intrigued to watch this show purely because of the drama and controversy it's created. And how do you feel about it? Have you been watching it? Like, obviously,
I have.
No major spoilers, but that spoiler that Master Chief got laid is literally everywhere. You can't avoid it. It's
yeah,
like
normally I
headline
wouldn't
news
bring
and
up
stuff like
major spoilers like that, but like people like was it Paul
It's
Tassi
everywhere.
was like instantly like, this is a spoiler, but I don't care. Master Chief has sex. Like this was at like 8 a.m. the day the episode came out, so most people had not seen it. That being said, I won't dive into more spoilers, but I have been watching it, and I've been watching it with my wife, who doesn't care about Halo at all in the slightest. Doesn't really like the games, hasn't cared about the lore, but she's been watching it and she's been enjoying it well enough. And I love Halo. I love the Halo games, but I've loved that Halo games primarily for the gameplay, primarily for the world, and primarily for the early subtle narrative. Like Halo Combat Evolved, I really like the way the narrative is presented in there, and Halo 2, and I really like the subtle narrative where I can kind of fill in the gaps. Again, I'm not going to read the books. I don't care what canonically in the books is happening. So for me, I've just been watching this show as like a dumb popcorn thing. I just clap and laugh every time a grunt explodes or somebody gets disemboweled. Like there's awesome gore, there's cool guns, and there's a lot of character building, which I'm gonna say it, and it's not gonna be popular, Jez. So I hope you'll have my back here. But Master Chief in the video games, not a good character, not a relatable character. Not a greatly written character. Halo Infinite, I think, did the best job like making him interesting. But most of the games, he is like the Bruce Willis one. He's Bruce Willis's one-liners, like in character form. And to me, like that's fun. Because I play Halo for the action. But in terms of like connecting with Master Chief, relating to Master Chief, he's never had like emotion. And I think that's where people have a lot of problems. Now he has emotions. Now he's free thinking. Now he's having sex, and there's all these like things that like this is not Chief. If you know Chief in the books, you know Chief in the games, this isn't what you know. But they've also said countless times like this isn't canon. We're not trying to be canon at all. And people still like are like, well, this isn't canon, and they're like, yeah, we told you it's not canon. And so I don't care. At this point, I'm in it just to see people squirm because people are so fixated on Master Chief and this world and this character. I can just sit back and take it for what it is, laugh when Master Chief has sex, and then move on with my life. And for those reasons, I'm enjoying the show. It's not the best show by any means, but for a Halo series, probably could have been worse, right? Maybe I'm alone. I've seen people say it's the worst thing that has ever happened to Halo, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
I sort of like Halo fans, like they get mad about things like logos in the progression system being wrong and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, cat ears.
There's like
you can't have cat ears because it's not lore. Then they had to like tie a lore reason into cat ears. I'm like, y'all, what is happening? Just stop.
And like I remember the debates over sprint in Halo. and the jetpacks and the ground pound from Halo 5, and I remember all this stuff. Like, it's not Halo. It's like Halo can't evolve if they're not allowed to try anything different. That an experiment. I think Overwatch, as Blizzard, all of Blizzard's games actually, they have this really cool feature called their brawls, where they experiment and test things that are like sort of outside of the norm for the game. And some of these modes end up becoming so popular that they make it into the main game. I think especially like when it comes to Gears and Halo, they could like benefit from experimenting with separate modes that maybe defy people's expectations about what Halo is or what Gears is and stuff like that. Maybe, have a mode that's sort of like if they are making this Tatanka stuff, and Tatanka's another thing I think they could reveal at E3, the sort of battle royale sort of esque mode that I think could launch later this year. Like maybe in that they test like having skins that aren't lore true. I want to play a Spinal in Halo Infinite. I don't care if it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Spinal.
Full gore, gore Halo, a full gore armor. How perfect would that be?
Yeah. I don't care if Halo fans get mad. I don't care. I want to play as fucking Spinal. Oh god, I'm swearing. We don't swear on this podcast.
Oh my god, turn it off. Shut it.
Oh no! I want to. We can bleep it out in the edit.
Yeah, it's fine. We can get away with one. Yeah. YouTube. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, can get away with one.
Yeah, it's like the PG-13
I want to play as
effect.
Banjo. I want to play as Banjo in Halo. I want to run around as Banjo, and like instead of the Cortana AI, I got little Kazooie flying around. Screw it. Blow it open. I think Halo's desperation for purity is what is holding it back. Personally, I know Halo fans ain't gonna like that. I know Halo fans would be upset if Spinal was running around with a battle rifle.
You know what? Jez? We talk about Halo fans like it's this other thing. I'm a Halo fan, and speaking as a Halo fan, let's get weird with it, okay? I'm so tired of the lore-centric, by-the-books Halo community that doesn't want to have fun. Halo can be fun. Halo should be fun. And if you want Halo to grow and be this franchise that you want it to be that stands toe-to-toe with Warzone and Fortnite, for example, the reason Warzone and Fortnite are huge is because right now you can go on Call of Duty Warzone, you can be Snoop Dogg, and you can fight King Kong and Godzilla. You know how stoked I would be if you could be Snoop Dogg in Halo Infinite and fight King Kong? Come on, guys. Let's have fun with video games. I'm tired that that's not the norm anymore, all right? That's my impassioned take there. As a Halo fan, okay? Because I'm tired of people saying, oh, well, Halo fans are crazy. Halo fans are this. No, not all Halo fans are crazy, all right? There are Halo fans who try to suck all the fun out of Halo, and I'm tired of it, and I won't stand for it. Let's get weird, and 343, if you're listening, get weird. Don't be afraid to get weird. There's going to be people who are going to scream and be upset, but then there's going to be people like me and Jez who are just screaming it from the rooftops because we get to play as full gore in Halo Infinite.
I'm going to write that editorial next week and say how much hate I get.
Do it.
Screw it.
Do it. Let's go. All right. I'm tired of it. Super chat here from... All right. What do we got here? Oh, Faisal007 is asking, is Everwild still a thing? And is the Kojima thing also still a thing? What do you think? Everwild and Kojima?
Everwild is definitely still a thing because the dev team tweeted out a picture from one of their meetings just yesterday, I think. They were like, Everwild meeting, blah, 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 blah. Just some of the Everwild team, they were having a little meeting. So, yeah, Everwild's still a thing. I think Jeff Grubb said fairly recently that the Kojima cloud game is still a thing. Yes. Microsoft actually made a publishing label recently, specifically Xbox Cloud Game Publishing or something. And they actually have like a production team for cloud games, native cloud games. I believe Project Indus might be one of these games that's cloud native, but we'll have to wait and see. And also I've heard that there are other cloud native games in development that sort of use the special cloud APIs to sort of display the UI differently when it's running on a phone, like Minecraft Dungeons does. So I have never had a shred of information about the Kojima stuff on my end. That's always been Jeff Grubb. So I still don't know about that game. Well, I've still not heard a thing about it. But Jeff's Jeff Grubb. The man isn't wrong generally, so I believe it.
Yeah,
we just have to wait and see.
When he writes it down in article form, you gotta give the man a little credit. All right, just a little bit. All right. RDX Son of Fett says, aren't Spartans neutered or something? I don't know. Maybe. Like I said, I'm not gonna read a single Halo book, so they could be. Again, the whole like Spartan program. I know there's some like dark sides to that, and there's like and they can't express emotions. Maybe they're neutered. I don't know. I don't know. You know, Jez? Is that confirmed? Let us know in the chat if Spartans are neutered. A question I never thought I would ask in my entire life. But
Brendan Lowry's the guy to ask about that.
Yeah, let's
Are Spartans neutered?
Everyone go on Twitter and at Brendan Lowry and ask, are Spartans neutered? All right. Victor says, Miles, you do have some takes. I do. And I'm true to myself. I'm true to what I believe, and that's sometimes it doesn't align with everyone else, and that's okay. That's okay, y'all. If you don't want Halo to be fun, that's fine. I see some people in the chat saying that exact thing, or they're saying we want Halo to be fun, just not silly. Okay, where do you draw the line? Okay, between fun and
there's cat ears and Clippy are in Halo now.
You know what? Like,
just put Doom Guy there and put Marcus Phoenix there. It's about damn time.
For a long time, I was like, Fortnite's dumb. Fortnite's stupid. Fortnite sucks. No, I wasn't that aggressive, but I just didn't care about Fortnite. And then on a whim, I was like, you know what? I'm going to reinstall Fortnite. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to see why everyone's still talking about it and still playing it. And then we were playing the other night, and we had the squad. We had Marcus Phoenix. We had we had 2 Master Chiefs, and we had a giant hot dog. And we were blasting the new Korn song in Fortnite, bombing down a hill in a giant tank, blasting people. We destroyed them. We danced, and then we did the savage dance on their dead corpses. And I'm sorry, but as dumb, as stupid as it is so fun. We were dying. We were like cry laughing because of how absurd this game is, and the fact that all exists in one game. It's just beautiful. I'm sorry. Like, for a long time, I didn't want to love Fortnite because I paid money for Fortnite. I bought it. Like, I bought the original Fortnite.
How about this? Right. How about a compromise? There's a setting in the options menu to give people random Spartan lore accurate skins. And there's another setting which lets you have dumb skins, like the cat ears. Like, let me play as Clippy. I want to see a giant clip running around the battlefield, Why not just do that? Have a setting that turns off the dumb stuff to make the purist happy.
Yeah.
And have a setting that lets us have fun. Let me play as Among Us crewmate in Halo.
Yeah,
I think that'd be cool.
You go to the settings of Halo Infinite, and then you go to gameplay, and there's just a toggle that says fun, and you can turn fun on or off. And that's it. We're just having fun.
I think that's a compromise, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good compromise. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the gore filter in Gears of War. Like, personally, for me, I would never play Gears of War with the gore turned off, but it's there. So let's go into Halo Infinite and let's add the option for some fun, right? People are gonna be mad. We're just having fun. I'll just say, I have to say it because people are gonna be below me. We're just having a little fun here. All right, that's all.
Just having a little fun. Don't kill me.
No, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I
mean, I get it, right? Because Call of Duty Vanguard, right? I really like the World War II setting for my shooters. But I hate the fun in Call of Duty Vanguard. I don't like the fact there's laser dot sights in Call of Duty Vanguard. It makes no sense. I don't like the fact there's like colorful magic guns in Call of Duty Vanguard. It's supposed to be World War II. It's supposed to be depressing. So I get it, kind of.
Yes, I do.
The solution is give me a fun filter. If I can play Call of Duty Vanguard with a fun filter that turns off all the color and the happiness, then that'd be great. And add that to Halo as well,
That's it. It's that simple. All right. That's how you fix. People ask, how do you fix Halo Infinite? That's it. Right there. Boom. We'll take our checks,
Boom.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'm dying. Jez, let's wrap this show up. We got to gear up for the big Halo showdown. Windows Central Discord versus the Games Summer Game Mess, whatever the F Jeff Grubb calls his Discord now. The big Halo Infinite showdown. Got to mentally prepare to just absolutely clown on Jeff Grubb and Mike Minotti. But first, Jez, let all these amazing people know where they can get a hold of you.
You can get a hold of me on the Windows Central Discord, which is right here in the chat. And also at Jez Corden on Twitter, which is right here in the chat, JZCORDEN. And also on windowscentral.com/gaming. And thanks very much for having me on, Miles. It's been a fun show.
Yes, Jez, thanks for joining me. Huge shout out to everyone who tuned in today. If you were watching live, thanks so much for joining us. If you dug the show, if you had some fun, hit that like button. If you are listening to the audio versions of the show, be sure to leave us a review as well. That is going to do it for this week's episode, and we will catch you all next Saturday. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody.